and other occupations are looking for social skills, and they also take a look at reasoning. And so areas that many times when kids come into kindergarten, go through elementary school, etc., here, we find that those behaviors have not been dealt with. And so then, in addition to trying to teach the academics, we also now have social-emotional curriculums, and we're responsible for teaching that also.
Yeah. But I think that we are seeing a little more of the vocational with the magnet and charter schools. A lot of them are focusing on a certain area, whether it's entrepreneurship, computer sciences. The school that I'm at, ACE, is for architecture, construction, and engineering, to provide more opportunity for the students. So some of our students are going to go on to a four-year college, where some are going to go right into the trade. So I think you're seeing a little bit more of it now than you did per se in the past.
And they see it as something positive. Why have we been seeing it as a negative? You know, hey, they're going to a vocational school. You know, you know.
I don't think we've been broad in exposing kids to what all of the opportunities are. I know that there are some high schools that have what they call career pathways, where when you start in high school, there is a focus. It could be a medical focus, but guess what? To take a medical focus doesn't necessarily mean that you become a physician. There are other occupations that are in the medical field. So how do you really expose children to all of the areas that may be associated with a particular field, to see what the opportunities are, and that, you know, it may not be that everybody is meant to be a physician, but there are other medical areas that you can take a look at. We talked earlier about as far as college visits and exposing kids.
College visits, one thing that we've been trying to do more is not just college visits and college fairs, but also career fairs. We just had one recently where we had people come from different professions. We also try to get internships for our students so that they can go out into certain professions, careers, fields, industries, and kind of get a feel what that's like, to see, is this something I can see doing? So I think exposure is huge, whether it be the college tours or shadowing someone for a day in a profession or being an intern somewhere for a couple months. I think exposure is key, and that's part of the problem, is they're not seeing all the opportunities that are available to them.
How do we educate the system? I mean, should we do, like, should the government be paying for, like they do in Finland, pay for, you know, the students, especially in preschool? I mean, they talk about they don't have the money, but yet we look at all the money, look at all the billions of dollars we sent to Egypt, which is now with Moose Parks, you know, he took billions with him. So we obviously have money. We fund the Afghanistan war, we fund all these other wars, we fund different foreign countries we're constantly giving money to. I mean, why are we not giving money for our students? I mean, they have money, let them print more money.
We also fund the prison system. And I definitely believe that if you don't put the money up front to educate children, you will pay the price later down the road. And guess what? If somebody needs to be in prison, we don't stop building prisons. We build as many as we need.
But if
we find the space.
And why are they in prisons? Because they drop out of school. And I think they should have a law that children cannot drop out of. They have to go through high school till they're 18 or 17 or a high school equivalency. That there should be a law that students have to stay in high school. They have to stay in grammar school or elementary school. They have to stay until they finish high school.
And you know, there are rules that say that children are to be in school up to a certain age, but you know, this is more than just the schools. This is how do we get the communities to work with us? How do we get parents to work with us? How do we get everybody to understand that they all play a part? If a parent is telling a child, guess what, you don't have to go to school, and yet the school is saying, yes, you do have to be here, and you have to go and pick a child up or try to pick a child up from home.
To get them to come to school.
That's right. And yet they still don't want to come, and the parent is saying, or even makes excuses for the child.
What about a law that says if they don't finish high school, they have to serve in the military, and they have to go directly into the military, or they go directly into the Peace Corps. Somewhere, another type of thing. If they do not finish, they drop out, then they come and they have to serve our country.
I think even the military wants some of the best there. They want highly educated. They don't want the dropouts.
Or maybe the Peace Corps is the way to go. Have these children, I know my granddaughter, when it was during the, in New Orleans, during the hurricane, the Katrina,
aftermath
she went there with some of her the students went there and they painted houses. She was like around 12 years old and painted some houses, and I thought that was wonderful exposure. She comes from the North Shore. She sees everything's beautiful. She goes to all her classes. She gets everything she wants, and that was really good because she saw these are children, they don't get everything they want. These are children that have a lot of problems as far as economy goes. They they were without houses, without. And she saw the real thing, maybe the real world. Maybe that's what we need to do. These children go into some kind of a Peace Corps, even if it's out of the country, into a third world country, or even working in our country in some capacity. So they want to drop out, they go into the Peace Corps.
But then, my question also is, how do we expose children to those opportunities before they even get to the point where they want to think about dropping out? So many children...
Well, you hit on a very important factor, and that is, how do we expose children? Maybe we should be getting the parents involved in the school system from early ages, from the time that they're in preschool on to kindergarten.
But what if there aren't any parents or some kids
that
guardian,
family, whoever serves as that guardian,
whoever their family is.
I think, Connie, you said something so important. It's not just the student being in the school and the teachers. It's the community. It's the families. It's that whole saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and it does.
Yes, it does.
And everyone has to buy into the importance of education. We need to get the people in the communities to be a part of it. We need to get the families to be a part of it, whether it's your traditional mom and dad, or your aunt or uncle or grandparent or foster parent or state, whoever serves as your guardian should be involved. Absolutely.
And see, we also, in today's time, the schools are being asked to do more and more and more. We're asked to feed children. We're asked to, we have all of these unfunded mandates that some kind of way we have to take the funds that are provided to us and stretch them even farther. And believe me, whenever you're dealing with or working with children from poverty, then what you're expected to do is even greater than if you're in a community where you don't have the level of poverty that exists in other places. And so it, like I said, it's a different world. As they say, from where we come from. So things have changed.
And somebody mentioned No Child Left Behind. But there were children left behind.
Yes.
What was this thing? No Child Left Behind. Our President Bush former President Bush said that was his thing. No Child Left Behind. What happened? So many children were left behind.
There was a state mandate that we had to children had to take a certain amount of tests for this program, and this is where the fallacy came into the whole program, in my opinion, is because the testing were not appropriate for the students. So they had children taking these tests and not passing them, and then the responsibility then fell on the teacher, and she was looked on as not being successful because the child did not succeed.
And I think anytime you have any mandate that is punitive in nature and does not take a look at focusing on solutions and focusing on answers, but there are sanctions that are associated with it. And so, what do we hear about the schools that are doing well? And, how are we acknowledging and putting them, in the spotlight versus those schools that are, quote, called failing schools, and all of the sanctions that are imposed upon them. And so it makes it something very negative and makes it difficult for people to buy into the concept. So I think it needs to be revamped. We're still waiting for that to happen, but we need to see something different take place.
I think you hit on the failing schools. Children, I think, when somebody said something about parents in California, did you hear about this? They're going into those failing schools, their children's failing schools, and they're trying to do something about it.
Good.
And so that's what's happening in California right now. The parents are now taking the responsibility because nobody else would do it for them, and they're going in and taking the responsibility to stop the failing school system in their community.
Well, it has to be
especially
where
if they have a school, if their child's in that school.
And we all have to, just really stop and say, this can't go on. That we can't say that this is acceptable and just, sit back and just watch this happen and see generations of children fall to the wayside and not be educated at high levels. So it just, for all of us, we need to take action. We need to say that this is not acceptable. And I mean, like I said, it just disturbs me greatly to know that we're where we are in this country as far as education is concerned.
It's about a national priority. It's really about reprioritizing what we think is important. And if our children are really important, then we have to reprioritize and figure out. We have lots of models that are working. They might not be one single way, but there's lots of different models that work. And we know, research has shown us what things work, and but we don't have a universal
That's what we need. They
national commitment.
That's what they have in these other countries. That's why they're working.
But not just
it's a universal system.
But not just a system. I think you just said it's that commitment.
Right. It's the
That's
commitment.
the key.
That's absolutely the key.
Student achievement is a
Because
priority.
Do you think that government should pay for schooling?
Government
Yes,
does pay
I think
for schooling.
yes.
No, I
And
mean
taxpayers pay for
Right.
schooling.
Well, taxpayers
definitely.
too.
Yes.
No, but I mean, if the government paid for, X amount of money for every single state and every single school, and we'd have that each of our children would be getting the same, basically the same. I mean, we can't have exactly the same education, but we could have at least a similar type of education.
Well, we should. There's different strands again in American education. One strand that we're moving towards is, Connie mentioned it, the Common Core standards, which are going to give, I think so far, do you remember how many states? I think as many as 47, or maybe
about
not that many.
27, yes.
27 states have already signed on, and I think actually there's more now. And that's going to give us a common core for a curriculum. Now, that curriculum can be modified, and can be data collected and can be used differently, but it's going to give us a way of connecting for the kind of education, a basis of a curriculum and of what students should know and be able to do that will help to unify what it is that students know. So students theoretically in a state like Alabama can be learning as much as a student in North Dakota or Minnesota, where literacy is extremely high. So that's one thing that will help, because that will help to change expectations. People will know much more about what every child should know and be able to do.
Well, ladies, I see I'm getting some, my director, we have a 1-hour show today, and it feels like we were just talking for about
5
10,
minutes.
15 minutes. But I just want to end with teaching, teaching is a noble path, and nothing is as rewarding as an education. Remember, your own children's education depends on other children's education. And so we need to educate everybody, not just to educate our own children or our grandchildren, but everybody needs education. Again, I want to thank you very much, Sylvia. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Rudy. Connie.
Thank you.
Katie. And this has been really a wonderful segment. I think this is, you are the ladies that are going to fix the system. I can see it right now. Without you, this is not going to happen. You've been wonderful. I'm really very, very proud to be with you today and with teachers, because it's such a noble profession. It should be up there with the doctors, the lawyers, and the sports figures. Nobody can do this as teachers. Without them, there wouldn't be those professions. Again, I want to thank you very much for coming today and spending the time here in taking time out of your busy schedules to inform our public, our viewers, what this is really all about. And not something that they just read about in the newspaper. This is the real stuff, and that's why I wanted somebody, a teacher, a principal, a superintendent of schools, and a school counselor that I think, really deserve it. And thank you very much for coming today.